Hello and welcome back to season 3 of the Let's Face It podcast. Today I nearly had to get a big chain and tie it around his neck and drag him down to my office trying to get you since I started the podcast. But we'll have Paddy Cunnigham here, and I'm very, very happy and delighted. Very special guest, someone who has probably been a part of my life from I was a teenager, I suppose. And has a great story to tell. And I can only imagine but think if he was playing football nowadays how much the world would be, or Ireland would be blown up about how good and stuff he is, and we'll maybe get into that about social media and stuff down the line. But again, a huge thanks to Used Cars NI for covering this whole season of the Let's Face It podcast. The Anthony, the Stephen and all the team there, their support is greatly appreciated. So hit them up on www.usedcarsni.com for all your car needs. If you're looking to buy a car, sell a car, if you're a car dealer, it's a great platform to go on and use that to sell your cars as well. It's very, very easy. Just log in, put in their age, drag a few photos across, and they do the rest, recommend prices and everything. So it's real handy. And so yeah, a huge thanks for their support. It wouldn't be possible without you. So yeah, www.usedcarsni.com. Thank you. What's crack, Paddy?
Well, good day. You might sell my car after that. That was a great spin.
Jimmy was like last week. Jimmy Conlon was sitting there going, "Where's the script behind that?" He's like,
I was very impressed. No, all good. Again, apologies. It took us probably the guts of
a year,
12, 18 months to get here, but we eventually got here.
We're here.
You collared me on Sunday at the match, so I sort of, when I seen you, heard me, oh my God, this man's going to kill me. So I didn't let you down this time, thank God.
See, to be fair, but I'm probably the same to other people, so I get it. So that's why I'm like, whatever, so it's alright. But no, great to have you. And I suppose, Paddy, for some of my listeners, a lot of my listeners would be young, sort of looking in, maybe looking for a wee bit of inspiration, a wee bit of help, a wee bit of direction in life. A lot of GAA people, but I suppose the new generation that we're in probably don't really know too much about the 2000s. Do you know what I mean? Because of the lack of social media and stuff. So I suppose to start off, the way I start off with all my guests of who you are, who you came from, and where you came from.
I suppose, obviously, name's Paddy Cunningham, for those who perhaps didn't know that. I suppose you introduced me anyway. I'm a school teacher in St Mary's Christian Brothers Grammar School in the Glen Road, past pupil of the school. I'm a member of the Lav Yara Club in Honnestown. I've played for them since I was 14. Previous to that, believe it or not, a lot of people probably don't even know this. I don't even know if you know this.
Do you know it?
You know it? I was born in Derry, lived in Braham Park on the waterside till I was 14, along with obviously my mum and dad and my big brother and sister. I'm the youngest of 3 children. My dad had a business up in Derry, and then he had one in Strabane, and then an opportunity came to open one in the west of Belfast, where mummy and daddy are originally from. Mummy's from Honnestown, daddy's from the famous egg and sausage there on the Shaws Road. So he opened up the business, which is still here today, thank God.
Auto Parts
Direct, opposite the Candy Centre there. So then we came back down when I was 14, and haven't looked back since. So I've been in Belfast, obviously. Well, I'm sort of in Lisburn now. Obviously got involved in the GAA as soon as I came down. It probably was the only thing made me fit in, particularly in St Mary's, going into a West Belfast school with the wee Derry twang and ginger hair and freckles at that stage wasn't a good look, and I suppose that's the beauty of the GAA. I was accepted straight away, and listen, St Mary's pastoral programme second to none. I don't want to take away from that, but GAA really gave me an identity and really gave me a place in St Mary's and in Belfast as a whole. Obviously Casement was still flying at that stage, so I spent many an evening down there, probably most nights of the week, and then just obviously developed into playing for the county. Then I was lucky enough to play for Antrim from, I don't think I made any under 16 squads, made the minor hurling and football teams, and then developed in the under 21 as it was then, football and hurling. Then went on to the hurling panel for a couple of years, and then progressed. I wasn't getting my place. I was subbing the hurling team, but then I started to make my way into the Jordanstown team at University of Ulster, and then I moved on to the football team, and then I suppose the rest is history. Then played football, then stop and start then for the next whatever it was, scary 18, 19 years.
Right up until last year, really.
Last year, yeah.
I suppose, and then we'll go a wee bit deeper into that. Even I actually didn't know you lived in Derry for that long, and I actually remember there was a few things going about vaguely, like, you know, did you actually maybe could have played for Derry and different things like that. But see, even like that transition as a kid, and I always talk about transitions, whether it's from, and my big weakness or fall down in life, I suppose, was a transition from school, my safe place, to university.
Yeah.
And that's whenever you go and find different things and different paths, and you no one holding you accountable and all this crack. But structure. And what was that like then as a young sort of, you're coming into your teens, like, you know, coming into West Belfast? Not an easy place to come into if you're not.
Yeah, it wasn't. And I think, to be honest, I was lucky I had sport. You know, I was just Gaelic and hurling mad. You know, it's all I wanted to do. And I suppose, given where we lived in Derry, you know, I predominantly practiced and played most of the time by myself. Now I played for a city club called the Mayha in hurling and Ardmore and Gaelic, which owe them so much for obviously being able to play when I was up there. But when I came down here, it was like a different world. This was GA world. You know, you were going around Alderstown or Hannistown, and all there was hurling and football to me, and that's all I really seen. And obviously my daddy still played for the club whenever he lived in Derry, so we had to travel up and down most weekends. So I always remember being at the pitch, and that's all the place that I wanted to be. And like probably from 14 to Jesus, even when I played for Antrim, like I lived in Landurk's pitch, like just hitting frees, shooting, sideline cuts, penalties, whatever it was. Like I just vividly remember when we moved down, the family was a wee bit disjointed. My sister went to Queen's to do law, so she stayed in the halls of residence. It was crazy when you look back at it. My father lived with his parents in the Egg and Sausage in the Shaws Road. My mummy was still in Derry, trying to sell the house. I was living with my granny in Hannistown Hill. It's crazy when you look back. My brother was in university in Derry, so he was in the halls of residence in Magee. So we were all over the show for maybe six, maybe a full school year actually. So Granny McCaig, like, was just godsend. Like, she was just the nicest woman ever. Like, and she said, I didn't want to go back and live with my dad. God forgive me. I
think all our grannies are the same, mother.
She was unbelievable. And then it got to the point then my daddy was saying, right, we need to get everybody back together here, because he was starting the business and mummy was still in Derry, and obviously mothers are mothers, so she's ringing granny 40 times a day. What's he at? How you get on? Blah, blah. So we ended up buying a house in Crumman, living out there for a couple of years, and then unfortunately granny passed then maybe when I was maybe 18, 16, 17, 18, around that. I can't remember the exact year. And then when daddy bought the house then off my mummy's brother then at that point, and then we've been the family home still in Hannistown Hill, and thank God mummy and daddy are still there. So yeah, I suppose then in terms of school, the school aspect of it, as I said already, sport was the avenue. You know, I was blessed to be playing with all our lads from the club who went to Smeary's, like Michael Hearn, Finton Gamble, good friend circle, really strong friend circle when you look back at it. Really good families. So we would have really much stayed in our own bubble in school. Like, it was just same as probably any sports person you had on. We ended up doing the same A levels, PE, RAs and politics, and then yes, we all went sort of different pathways once we went to university. But it was challenging. But I think the real thing that got me through generally was sport.
Sport and the people within sport and the power of the GA community.
That's it.
And one thing, like, I had Aaron Graffin on the podcast and had Sambo on the podcast, and I often sort of grew up, like, I loved Joe Canning growing up, and that sort of Pertumna and that sort of, you know, the village and the parish and that sort of spirit, and we don't really have that in Belfast, but Hannistown kind of have it to an extent, and Lavure kind of do it's probably the closest thing to that, you know, the country sort of club within Belfast. How much did Lavure have an impact, sort of? I like people like Buki, all these names are starting to come to me now, like, have an impact in your sort of life, not just as a footballer, like as a person growing up through them sort of teenage years.
It was massive, and I'm sure for my uncles, obviously Shanty McCaig, Pat McCaig, who obviously is a club Lavure legend, like, as my granda, his father, my mummy's father was before, so he lives next door to my mum and dad's house. So if anybody knows within Antrim anyway, I'm sure everybody knows who Shanty is. You hear him shouting.
I was going to say, you'd hear him before you hear him
before you see him, and he shouts as me as much as anybody else. He says, Patrick, what are you at? No, you hit the ball wide, so I'm well used to it. But I suppose, like, living with my granny, like, Pat would have went and watched be it an under-8s match, not even anything to do with Lavyard, could have been Rossa playing St John's or St Paul's playing St Gauls. They drove to Cargan, they drove to Portganown, and obviously I was in the seat beside him, like, and that really from an early age really just seeped into me. And I suppose when you make the point about Hannistown being like a parish, even when it's funny when you try to explain the people who you play for, they don't really get, like, so you're in the country, you're a country team then, and then obviously some of the people from down the road, as it's called, like obviously Lavyard situated on top of Black Mountain, a lot of people would say that we are a country team, and I suppose we're probably an element of both. You know, when you look at the players within the team, probably more so now because there's a lot more houses up there than what there used to be. There's a lot of kids from the area playing for the club, whereas previously there used to be the bus come up and down the hill. So we do largely still depend on players from, you know, down the road, for want of a better term. But no, there is obviously you've the chapel, you've the GAA club, you know, which is two focal points within any community. So you know, I would still saying obviously the older hands would refer to Landurg as Hannistown as the place, and I think whenever somewhere's referred to as the place rather than the club, that sort of shows you that there is an element of that sort of country ethos, parish ethos in it.
Definitely, because even I was called in to see my granddad there, and he had his bookie slips and all wrote out for me to go into the bookies for him. Where are you going? I'm going to work. And I said I'm doing a podcast with Paddy Cunnigham. Oh, the left footer. He's Hannistown, isn't he? Do you know? Yeah. So that sort of backs up your point. Yeah. But what were you like in school, academically?
Wasn't the brightest. Had to work. Same with sport. I was far from. I don't think I got on any of the St Mary's team until upper sixth. Being honest with you.
So sorry. So, from the outside looking in, do you, Paddy, like, obviously I had the pleasure of playing with you, like, I'm probably the best player I've played with. Like, I'm not just saying that because you're sitting here, but I would look at you and be like, he's just gifted.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Well, listen, obviously over time you get better at things. The more you do it, as I always say to kids in school, it's like it's the same with your schoolwork. The more you practice, the more you revise, the more you do X, Y, or Z, usually the better you become at it, like once you understand it. But no, like through St Mary's I would have maybe been in and out of the hurling team under Eddie McToll and Tony Austin, but football I never really got a look in. Strangely I was small, but I always had basically a good skill base, but it was small and frail and weak. Some say I was the whole career, but just kept, like, that's what I'm saying to you, there's no doubt about it. The only reason that I was able to break in when I got older in the Antrim team or even the club senior team, I sort of started to turn the corner about 17, started to really see a difference, broke into the club senior team 16, 17, which is really unheard of now because of the new rules in terms of the age and stuff, but solely down to self-care in terms of practicing, free taking. Like, if people say, oh, you're good at frees, the only reason I was good at frees, or whatever way you want to put it, is I practice frees at least 4 or 5 times a week, at least, maybe every day when I was younger. Like, just if I had one football, if I got another one, or I was able to get some, or, you know, bag, bar and steel or whatever it was, you know, I practice frees every single day. Like,
where'd that come from?
I don't know, being honest. I suppose looking back, we lived in Derry in '93. I was 8 when they won the All-Ireland. Looking at Enda Gormley, really, Anthony Tohill, Joe Brawley, and then McGurk, that whole team. I idolized Henry Downey. They could have named you the whole team 1 to 15, you know, when it was that age. So probably Enda Gormley always stuck me out, even though he hit them off the ground. I always hit them out of my hands. But then Charlie Redmond from Dublin, Marshall Gerald Carey, like, I just was always watching those boys, and then just always wanted to not emulate them boys, so to speak, but just say, listen, I just practiced. It was just, I think that's very hard, and I see now, and it annoys me at times with children of the current generation. A lot of them feel that they should get instant success, and whenever they don't get the instant success, they either give up or they blame somebody else, and that's very hard to try and talk through with younger people now. Take, like anything, you know, if you want to be successful at anything, it takes hard work and it takes time away, and that's including every facet of life, be it education, be it sport, be it work, be it family, be it, you know, anything that's important to you, and in terms of you want to do well in it, it takes work and a lot of
absolutely, and persistence.
Yeah, totally.
And we speak about that a lot in this podcast, that especially young people, and I can even relate to this too, like, you know, even going into something, a sport even, I'm not good at soccer, I'm not good at this, or I'm not good at that, then we'll just give up and try something else, and then we'll try something else instead of sort of breaking through them barriers and sticking at it. But like, I can picture you now, going through your teenage years, coming in 17, 18, 19, in Hanstown, practicing every day. Like, was there a dream? Like, was there an element of like, I want to be this or I want to be that? Or was it just sort of, you strike me as someone who's kind of just present and just goes with it, but was there a bigger picture involved? Like, I
suppose when you're a child, like, I didn't really think, right, listen, I want to play for Antrim, or I just wanted to. I suppose you were just in the moment and present, as you say, and just wanted to get better. And then I suppose long term, once you go a bit older, obviously you want to make the county minor squad, you want to make the under 21s. But listen, there's a lot of setbacks along the way too, in terms of not making teams. And I always say to myself, listen, just keep chipping away. And that's why I always try and say to even my young kids, like, you mightn't be the best, or you might be the best, at the moment, and same as at any level within school, but the best player in first year isn't necessarily going to be the best player in seventh year. The best player at under 8 or under 10 or 12 might be the best senior footballer. It's a journey, not a sprint. You know what I mean? And if you keep doing the right things and you keep, you're playing for the love of the game over time. I'm not saying listen, everybody's going to get there, far from it. But again, it's not all about playing for Antrim. It's not all about playing senior football. It's about enjoying whatever you're doing, be it Gaelic, hurling, soccer, reading, music, art, whatever it is that you're into. If you get a genuine enjoyment out of it, that's what it's all about first and foremost. If you're not enjoying something, you're not going to get good at it either. Generally,
I agree with you, and it's like, it's filling up your own cup. And me and Marty Ray talked about this a couple of weeks ago about, like, I think we're all fixated in sort of pushing on to be, at that top instead of being the best versions of us.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like, getting the best out of us and getting the best, like, and maximising our potential instead of me being like, I want to be as good as Paddy Cunnigham, because I'm never going to be as good as you.
I don't know about that.
But you know what I mean? It's just the fact. So can I be the best version of me? Yes, I can do that by showing up every day, by being consistent, by looking after myself, by doing all them things that you're only after talking about. But what sort of, you played under Denny Cahill in the hurling. Was hurling always sort of, like, and this is when Antrim are a good team, like, Antrim are up there probably nearly probably where we are now, and Antrim haven't been there in a long time. At what age did you sort of think that, I could maybe have a crack at playing at a top level here? Because people from, I know Micko did and Kieran did, and you sort of had a generation of lads there who excelled through Lavjord and Antrim, but people generally, and even from my time in Land there, didn't really play county hurling. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, no, you're right. I suppose even in terms of, like, obviously Micko, Brendan, Kieran, three hurls, like, were incredible, and they were established senior inter-county hurlers at that stage. And I suppose we went through the McGain journey with St Mary's, one of McGain, and it was all sort of building blocks, made the county minor team. And I suppose probably my most vivid memory of minor was playing Galway in Croke Park. We won Ulster and then played Galway, and the Galway team was phenomenal. We got beat out the gate, but it was just like a game just went like that. Like, it's crazy. Like, literally, and any game I've played in Croke, be it hurling or football, has went like that. I don't know whether it's because of the stadium or whatever else, but you're just obviously totally, like, in the moment or whatever. But probably that day, like, we got beat out the gate, but I think I got 4 or 5 points, whatever it was. Joe Cunnigham was our free taker. He was a great player. Just felt this is where I want to be. I think that was a catalyst in terms of going, right, okay, I got a wee taste for this here. Even playing in casement at minor, like, we played Cavan, Mickey Ling was playing, I can't remember, there's another couple of few, Marty Dunn, great corner forward, like, and I'm going, right, like, these boys are class, like, I have a bit to go to get anywhere near these lads. So once you got that wee sense on it, that sort of drove me to push on. But I don't really feel that, like, as a child I was going, right, I want to do this. I was just enjoying the game and trying to get better in it and harnessing the ability or lack of ability I had and tried to improve. Like, if even now it's mad, you look back, I have regrets in terms of not doing more on my right foot. I was probably 18 before I started even soloing, and I remember as clear as day, I just went up to the pitch one day and started soloing from the end line to the 21 in Hannistown. Just kept doing it with my right foot, and then literally that was me able to solo on my right foot. But if somebody had grabbed me and that's why I have a young lad, Podrick, now at 10, I do his head on it, but using his left foot, he's, in terms of trying to get both now, because listen to Shane Walsh's podcast, and he's totally 1,000,000%. You know, he just got it when he was that age, and it's lasted him to the test of time. And I think now in the modern game, you need 2 feet, be a corner back or corner forward. So it's, even though like obviously he went on and played a bit of football for Antrim, I definitely have regrets about not doing more. It's crazy when you say it out loud, but I definitely wish I had it done more on my own when I was younger. Like,
it's mental, because I was reading an article this morning. It was Mark Lynch.
Yeah.
And
from Derry.
Great fan. Like, you were top of the left, he was full forward, and Andy Moran was top of the right whenever you won the Sigerson with Jordanstown. And he was saying, like, the ability that you, I don't know, it was a couple of years ago I think the article was from, and he says the ability that you had was just absolutely frightening, that you knew that anytime you got the ball, that like he was the type of person that wanted to take the man on, Moran wanted to take the man on, but you were always sort of on the loop behind him. And he says that I think your success rate was like 97 or 98% shooting. Like,
it was easy playing with them two boys and
but like what, like, and so you just said there, even though I went and played a bit of football for Antrim, like typical you, like any time that I talk to you, it's always like underplaying, like even yourself, like you just didn't go and do that, like, you know what I mean? Like there's people talking like Andy Moore and these boys saying like how good you were, like unbelievable, and I can only think if you were from a different county, or if you were from even playing in today's era where social media, and like I watched Shane McGuigan there last week and he's coming on the loop and he scored a point in his left foot and it went away out 20 yards and come out over the bar, and I was just like, that just reminds me of Paddy. Do you know what I mean? And footballers aren't really like that now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's 5 eyes, like, because we're so stuck in the gym and we're not practicing every day 5 days a week in the club and doing these things. But you went and played a bit of football, like, but in 2009, you know, probably one of Antrim's best ever years, and it's something that we're probably fed up talking about because there's nothing else to really talk about. But you know, you were the captain of the team, you're leading Antrim out. Talk me even through that sort of year briefly, like, you know, how that meant to you, because I grew up, I suppose, on being water boy in the St John's team, because my dad was playing the way up, and fucking St John's and Landberg used to have some mad battles in casement, like, and I always remember your mummy always used to stand behind whatever net that you were playing on.
That's true.
It's something that and something I never forgot about, and like, I can only imagine, and we'll talk about your mummy in 2017 in a wee bit, but I can only imagine how proud that even your mum and your dad and your sister, like how proud they were of you leading the county to an Ulster final. Like, how did that feel, and what was the whole process behind that?
I suppose, to be honest, I was probably shocked that Baker came in, like, and obviously everybody knows Liam Bradley, or anybody that doesn't, he's probably one of the most passionate men I've ever met in my life. And the big thing with Baker was, like, there was zero tolerance to nonsense, like, which was the first thing. And there was no disrespect to previous managers who had taken Antrim. I can only talk from my era playing, like, but Baker just came in and he was the man not to be messed with, like, in a good way, you know. And probably the big thing that Liam and Baker instilled in that group of players was a sense of belief. Early doors, like, you know, if you look at that crop of that team, even, you know, there's no coincidence, me and Tomas McCann won a Sigerson with Jordanstown, Justy Mick O'Hearn was on the year before, Kevin McGordy won one, Justy Crozier won one with Queens the previous years, Mick McCann was there, he got beat in the final. You know, that Antrim team, Colin Brady, Tony Scullion, Kevin Niblock, Andy McLean, you know, like, it was a really good generation. But listen, if Baker hadn't come in when we got the Ulster final in 2009, absolutely not. I can clear as day say that. He just instilled a real sense of belief. And in terms of being captain, I just remember sitting in the house, lying on the sofa one evening in the foment, and it was Baker, which wouldn't have been untoward, but he says, I have a job for you. I'm going, what is this man going to ask me to do? I thought he was trying to get me to get
somebody... Cut the back garden.
I had no idea. I thought he was going to say, right, listen, I need to get such on the panel. Can you go and speak to him for me? And and he says, I need to be captain of this team. And I went, right, okay. And he says, are you happy enough? And I says, like, geez, there's not a man in the world would knock back being captain of his county team. And I suppose the big thing too there at that point was St Galls and Corrigan. Yes. You know, there were so many from both panels, and there obviously was so much friction between a club level there, between, Corgans and Galls and then lesser extent themselves. That was sort of they were ding donging every year. So, and to be fair, probably had a decent enough relationship with all the lads from both clubs. Like, that's safe to say, like some Mick, Tomas, like everybody loves Tomas, but me and Mick would still be quite tight. Like, played from minor the whole way through, and then got it really well with Andy and the Black and them boys. So, just basically asked me to take on the role, and away we went. So we had a great couple of years. Won Division 4, won Division 3, then obviously went to Division 2. Over the course of that, then got to the Ulster final. Then got beat by Kerry the following week, who went on and won the Ireland. It was nip and tuck the whole game, like. Excuse me, looking back at it. So no, listen, it was great. From running out in Clonus, like, in any game, never mind being captain, it was incredible, and that's probably something you never really took on board at the time, but I suppose now when you look back at it, it was good. So
you're playing it down again, but I mean, you scored 11 points that day. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
And that's whenever the Paddy shuffle, I suppose, came to
Something like that.
came to the front. And that's, you were probably renowned that right up until last year, like, and people sort of referencing it in any sort of podcast you heard or article you read. It was all about Paddy Cunnigham and his shuffle. Like, what did that come from? A kid, like, or was that a new thing that came in?
No,
sort of?
I think it just shows, like, in terms of talk about anybody who takes free kicks or conversions in rugby, about the routine. That was just part of the routine, and generally wouldn't have even knew I was doing it. Obviously, subconsciously, you know, but I would never have. It's just, I don't even know why it happened. It just happened, and it worked, and it just stuck with me. I'll just sure you're talking about AIDS in 2009 and younger generations. So I'm sure a lot of younger ones listening to this. Keelan McKernan from Sarsfields, who's on the county hurling panel with you know him obviously very well. He was saying to me yesterday, there was one of the lads up in the pitches at lunchtime doing it, and he says, "You're doing the Mr. Cunningham shuffle," and he goes, "Mr. Cunningham shuffle?" Yeah, so it just shows you how says, "You're getting old, Paddy." He doesn't even remember the Paddy Cunningham shuffle. I was laughing.
Allow me to reintroduce myself.
No, that'll do that. I hear me. Hopefully he's doing it in the next 5-10 years.
No, that's class. But, like, obviously that was a special year for Antrim. Like, there's no doubt about it. And then obviously with Kerry and stuff like that, like, you ran them right and close. You're at the front. What does leadership look like to you, Paddy? Like, what's a good leader?
Somebody, probably the first thing I'd say is that's a good example.
What does that look like?
Well, it depends on the context. In the sporting context, just think first of all, obviously standards, your own standards, your standards of training, your standards in matches, your reaction to things in that whole environment, be it training, be it matches, be it team meetings, your communication levels in terms of, I suppose it comes with maturity as well. You know, people have lives outside of football, and even though you're stuck in the bubble of county football or hurling, although they're in that changing room or on the training pitch or it's match day or you're playing in Clonus or Croke or Thurles or whatever it may be, there's a lot going on maybe outside of that as well. So it's obviously just being a good teammate and a good friend in terms of that as well, and you know, looking at it from a holistic point of view. And I suppose your responses to things as well. Things aren't always going to be going well, and it's about showing resilience and showing character in terms of setbacks, both individually and collectively. And then obviously encouraging the boys around you and the team around you, and trying to get the best out of everybody in the group. I think that starts with yourself first and foremost, and then obviously in terms of setting the standard, and then obviously trying to bring that through the whole group.
And that's powerful, and you can do that, and in a county setting where people are on the same sort of vibration as you, because you're in the elite, if you want to say, within the county, bringing that back into the club. Like, even more so, people, you know, probably take their social lives a wee bit more seriously, or they like going out more for a pint, or they like doing different things, and it's very hard and kind of frustrating going back into that setting and trying to keep them same standards. And you mentioned there in the middle of that, whenever I asked you about leadership, was resilience. And how many county finals were you beating?
Too many. I think, including replays, maybe 6 or 7 anyway, I would say. Yeah.
You know.
Well, I'm talking from since
you
17,
were
6 or 7,
like,
I would say, yeah.
And I think
just
that
ran into that wonderful St. Galls team constantly.
Like, yeah.
Corgan, a good Corgan team too, a lot of times.
100%. And I think, like, you know, we talk about resilience loads and different buzzwords, if you like. But I'm a big believer in it's through action. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not just, we're not just going to... Sister Concilio said this to me in QMR one day. She's like, Donald, don't tell me, show me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, actions speak louder than words. And you always seem to have that action. I don't know, like, it just seems, even, like, fast forward then, I moved to Lamderg 2016, I think it was.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was going through my own things there, and probably was one of them people that you were probably frustrated by. With the drinking and stuff like that, and not taking football seriously to the extent, but I suppose when I was on the pitch I took it serious.
Yeah.
And I felt that we kind of had that relationship of where you pointed I would give, you know, that type of thing, and you kick the ball and you just know that sort of, you can do all the training you want, but if you have it up there, then it sort of helps it in a way. But 2017 obviously, I suppose, you played in the hurling in 2016 when we won the Ulster that year?
I played in the Ireland semi-final. I was still playing county that year, and then dropped off the county team in 2017. But I didn't even think you were being very hard on yourself there that year. We won the championship. Like, I think,
so it's a 17 then?
Yeah, I think 18 was more whenever I would have had whenever in your own journey.
Yes.
That, you know,
yes,
like,
so sort of stepping more into
that. You know,
that
way. But 17, I think you were obviously. You know, you obviously changed club, which was massive for you, and obviously you went back to St. John's. But no, what they called, it would have been 2017 would be the first time I, but obviously you, like, obviously had a lot of time for you growing up as well, you know. You were obviously in Bucky's love child at that point, so no, what it would have been 2017 would have been the first time we played a full season, but like as you say, whenever it's a bit wavelength, and you talked about Martin Lynch and Andy Moore, like seeing that Sigerson team, like it was just like it Carl Lacey at centre half back, it Charlie Harrison cornerback, Peter Donnelly, thrown trainer for the Ireland there, was our captain, Tomas centre half forward, Remy Mulgrew from Tyrone, like it was just a phenomenal team. That's only ones I can remember off the top of my head, but it was just wavelength. Like me and Andy and Mark Lynch were just in the same wavelength. Yes. You didn't even have to think; it was telepathic. Just happened. Yeah, and like I was only in a university team. It's not as if we were from the same club team or the same county team. It was just so easy. Easy is the wrong word to use, but it was just natural. Yeah. Do you know that sort of way? And I suppose, you know, whenever you can get players in a team environment in that same wavelength, be it midfield, forward, 6 to 8 to 11 or whatever, no matter what position it is, if you can get players who know where the other one's going to be and what they're going to do before they do it, obviously it helps the system. Like.
And it was because it's very, it's hard because you don't really find players like that, and I felt like even on that team, Paddy, like there was kind of something building. Do you know what I mean? Where Miko, you talk about wavelength, you know, you talk about Dacky, even Kieran Flaherty that year.
Yeah, was brilliant. Yeah,
like you just knew, and I knew any time that I was going forward. Like even me and Pearson midfield, kind of had it just sussed. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Constantly talking, even like. Anytime I knew that I was going forward and someone was holding me up, I knew you didn't even have to look, you just had to throw it back and you were on the back of me and it was over the bar. Do you know, even we think, like you talk about being telepathic, and there was something building there, and you know that,
keep talking here, Tony, we come back.
Fuck me, you know. that night in Corrigan against St. Galls, even
that's true.
You know, and by the way, I'm just trying to paint a better picture for other people. Like, you know, I just think it's an element of. We talked about resilience, the amount of setbacks that you had through growing up in Lamderg, and that sort of season would maybe. I think I remember sitting with you one night after, and we were sitting having a pint, and it was nearly like it's nearly all worth it because I've got my championship medal.
Yeah, definitely. It was like you talk about Ulster finals and Sigersons or anything else, like nothing compared to that. Like more sense of relief than anything. Like, you know, having get beat so many times, they eventually get one. Like listen, to be fair, I wish I had more, and probably should have won the following year too, being honest. I think we lost it. Listen, Corgan had to go and win it, don't get me wrong, but I think we lost it the first day before it went to replay. We were 5-6 up and let them back into the game, and listen, they've obviously proven since that they're champions too, so we can't take it away from them. But no, listen, without a doubt, that's definitely my biggest achievement as a player. Like.
And I talked about your mummy, and I'll never forget this, like, because obviously, you know, she's with you the whole way through, like, and then her coming onto the pitch after that day in Cunnigham, I remember getting the big hug and stuff she gave me, and I think there's a photo of you and your mummy and your dad.
That's right.
Just full of joy and pride and happiness.
More emotion than anything. Yeah. That stage, I suppose, less than mum.
How much do they mean to you, Paddy? Like,
listen, they're everything. Like, do you know what I mean? My ma was a person. Dal not like hearing this, but my ma was a person who took me to every training, like in Derry. But it took me, like, we live in the waterside. Ardmore was maybe, well, I suppose relatively speaking for country people it's not that far, but maybe 10-15 mile to training, and then the hurling pitch was in Templemore Sports Complex, which is the other side of Derry, the other side of the town, so to speak. So listen, no, my ma everything, like, she took me to everything, like, and listen, she's lamb dark through and through, like, as her family is, she kicks every ball, and then our daddy obviously being heavily involved with the club, and all our brothers and stuff, like Pat's wife Anne next door, like, she washed the rigs for 30-40 years until technology moved on, like, and goes to dry cleaners or wherever it goes now, like. But that was the other thing too, like, you're talking about, like, culture and stuff, like, never forget going out the back of granny's every day, the rigs 1 to 15 or 1 to 30 was lined up and they were blowing like frig, like, I was just going, like, and our jersey's white, so it could be blood, it could be muck, I don't know how the woman, I remember just going up to the toilet and at the Anne's house and the bath just been full of jerseys, like, no seeping to try and get the stains out, like. But now listen, jeez, my man and dad so much, like, I know I'm giving my dad a hard time about no less, but listen, he obviously set the platform before me. He played for Antrim, Granda played for Antrim, so my Granda was Paddy, Dad's Paddy, I'm Paddy, so Paddy's under a bit of pressure now. So he is.
And then, like, even moving on a wee bit, Paddy, like, you talked there, you referenced even during whenever you were talking about leadership, about maturing. You know, probably the way you speak to people, the way you communicate, how you listen, even how you present yourself, how you carry yourself, all these different things evolve and grow as you mature more. You have a family of Claire.
Yeah. So Kelly,
I know.
You know what?
The family. You have Claire, you have Podrick, you have the girls.
Amy and Aoife.
Amy and Aoife. And, like, you're a daddy now, you're a family man, you're like...
Real life.
You know, it's real life, like, you know, you can't sort of be that, not narrow-minded, but like, I had, like, even Jamie and Mick Conlon were talking about this, to be where you were in terms of your skill, and like, you have to be sort of selfish in a way.
Yeah.
So we talked about the maturity, and, like, you've had your own struggles too, Paddy.
Just health-wise, yeah.
Health-wise, during, how did that all come about with
Cronin, so that's no issue talking about. Like, so basically took sick when I was about 13, 14. Glandular fever originally, and then just lost a lot of weight, no appetite, sleeping most of the day, and then went to the hospital, couldn't really find anything really untoward, so to speak. Just said, you've glandular fever, can last up to a year. And then I remember my dad coming home and my mum was distraught, because literally from a boy who was out in the street every day kicking football or whatever it was to lying in a heap most of the time, didn't really get to much school. Well, I got to school when I could, but, like, literally I'll never forget in French class, not that I was a big fan of French, I fell asleep and the teacher just came over and just lifted my hand up off it. He wasn't cross, he just goes like, I remember look back, I just woke up and looked at him, he says, like, he knew there was something wrong. But so then I remember being off school then for a while, and then my daddy was just saying, listen, we need to get this sorted. So I ended up going private, some consultant in Ballykelly, just outside Derry, and then at that stage he diagnosed it with, like, irritable bowel disease, whatever, and then over time then it was diagnosed as Cronin's. I was on steroids from 14 to 16, on those drinks rather than eating at times, and other different medications, and then sort of stabilised then a wee bit. And then I was actually probably taking you at that point when you were still at LaSalle. I was in placement year out of university, and remember we played a match the previous day, and I went to the school on the Monday, and I was just in agony, absolute agony. I was sitting in the benches, this in the junior school, and I remember, and I says to McGord, I'm going to have to go here, there's something wrong. Not that there's something wrong, I just thought, geez, a wild bad pain. So I remember my dad picked me up, went straight to the hospital then, and rushed into A&E, and then literally woke up, whatever it was, X amount of hours later the next day, and they cut my stomach open and took out like 9 or 10 inches of my colon. It was just poisoned. So they took out the poison sacs and then rejoined it. And then after that, then I was back on the medication. Tried a load of different ones. Some were making me sick, some were making me sleepy, some just weren't agreeing with me in terms of my passages, not to go into too much detail. And then eventually then they found one which is known as infliximab, which I'm still on. Very, very potent enough drug, but listen, it's been great for me. Obviously then through that I lost my hair, which was a challenge in itself. Difficult at the time, but looking back, you know, it is what it is, you know what I mean? I probably struggled with that for a while in myself. But listen, you know, thankfully, you know, I've been great over the last couple of years. Stabilised, no major issues. Surgery when I was, what age was I then? Maybe 20, 21, and now very old. So what do you call it? I haven't had any surgery since, and they say like a good percentage chance of having one within 5 years. So touch wood. Yeah. I've been grand, thank God. So I'm lucky that way.
And I think that again, typical. Sort of thinking about, you said about 2000, the Ulster final stuff. I was dead on, and then again with something like this, you're like, that was grand. But I can only imagine that was difficult too, Paddy. Like you're trying to maybe, even in terms of going out with friends during them years and stuff like that. You know, not eating. You know, trying to play games. We all know even how much we need to fuel our bodies to perform. Probably feeling weak, probably, you know, all these things that come into it. But I maybe, if you're comfortable talking about it, you know, the hair loss sort of thing, how much that sort of had, because no matter, like, if you walk down Andy Town, people know who Paddy Cunnigham is. You're a big part of West Belfast, but like not only through the football, but you teach probably a third of the population in West Belfast growing up with being one of the big schools. Yeah, you know. Self-image, things like this, looking in the mirror, how much of an impact did that play on you mentally? Like,
it was tough. Like, it was tough. And probably Claire's the only one really knows how tough it was. You know, it was tough. Like, and there was large, probably for at the start. Not that you're in denial with it. It was just going right. It's getting and the consultant had said, listen, there's a million different side effects, and that was one of the million side effects. So I was going, like, there's not really high likelihood this will happen to me, and lo and behold it did. So probably for the guts of, I don't know, maybe I'd say a year, maybe longer. I was always wearing hats. Being like, sun could have been splitting the trees, and I was wearing a monkey hat. If it was only hat I had in the car or had on me, or a pig hat or whatever it was. Just got, then obviously it was patchy, and then just got progressively worse. And then I remember I was in the barbers maybe a couple of times a week then, getting it really tight, so because obviously it was skin tight, you couldn't see it as much. And then I don't even know what happened, you know, in terms of where I just said, right, forget, you know. And listen, at the end of the day, like, people went through a million things worse than what I went through. But let's be honest about it, it's pretty small in the grand scheme of things. So the annoying is whenever you're not thinking about anything else, everything's a million times worse too. But listen, at the end of the day, it was either be stable with the Cronins and have a decent enough quality of life, or have her, so to speak. You know what I mean? And listen, it is what it is. I'm well over it now, and looking back, I just wish I had dealt with things a lot better. Do you know that way? Being honest, like.
And that's there's a few things you mentioned there, and Olivia McVeigh was on too, and she lost her hair, and she wears wigs now, and now she's a big advocate of like promoting this and sort of being comfortable in her own skin and perspective, Paddy.
Yeah, that's it.
And I think even for me, you know, I was doing a podcast yesterday for another boy, and he was like to me, you have like a compelling story, you know, with things like trauma and like abuse and stuff. And I was like, but that's okay, but am I a victim or am I a survivor? So what am I going to choose to be today? Like, you know, and I probably was a victim. And that's probably why I sort of went down the route of drinking and drugs and trying to escape this and feeling sorry for myself. But then when you come to the other end of it, they're like, no, I'm actually glad all this has happened, because then I can be who I truly am, and I can be comfortable in my own skin. And for that, and that's what you mentioned, their perspective, it took a lot of perspective to step out of it and to look back in and be like, hold on a minute here, that's just one part of my life.
That's it,
and there's other people going through X, Y, and Z, and that's what I said before we started recording there, about we criticise ourselves enough. and we think, you know, we're looking in the mirror, we're maybe not happy with how we look, you know, at home, yourself and Claire probably had long nights, you're probably kind of not feeling sorry for yourself, it's the wrong term, but, you know, in this sort of bad place you think you can't get out of. So why should we spend more energy and time thinking about maybe what other people are going to think? Because
well, that's it. That was the big thing, like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? And you didn't know what people were going to think or whatever, and you're just and probably listen. I suppose it comes with the age as well. Older now than when I was then and stuff like that. But listen, as you say, I think you nailed it in the head there. There's a million other things. You know, we're blessed, and we're blessed to have what we have, and you need to be very thankful for that as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And what about then your coach in Rosario?
Well, I'm trying to step away, and I think I have got away. I just want to be a parent for a while.
Well, I know you're a parent, but
so
what sort of coaching? So you know, I know you've done a lot with St Mary's in terms of the development of football and hurling, and not just that. You mentioned the pastoral side of it too. Like, you know, I know even next to Keelan there, and people, my friends have had a lot to say about you. In terms of being a teacher too, like, I'm not just saying you're a brilliant coach and stuff, but in terms of would you like to go down that route, Paddy? In terms of taking a team and that county sort of, but
I don't know.
You're still playing and stuff, aren't you?
Well, I'm still playing, but listen, geez, I'm not getting any younger. Like, but at the minute, I'm just like, obviously, as you know yourself, when you're playing county and even playing club level, you know, you're very selfish in terms. And listen, I was playing county for a long time. Like, the kids are obviously heavily involved in activities now, so I'm enjoying just, you know, taking Paddy to soccer and Gaelic or e-footage gymnastics or swimming, and Amy to here and everywhere work now at the age she's at. So, like, you know, at the minute I'm happy, I'm still playing and enjoying that side of things in terms of just getting the kids to their stuff. What, you know, do I see myself going into management and coaching in the future? I definitely wouldn't rule it out, you know, that way. But at the minute I'm happy enough. I'm happy enough as I am, you know. I really enjoyed taking the school teams. Like, we're blessed to have Shay and CJ and Oren, Adol and Brian, them boys. Like, they were just an absolute dream for 7 years, taking them through that journey. And obviously I'm back in now with first years, so we'll give them a rattle over the next couple of years and see how we get on there. But no, listen, I'm enjoying taking the kids' side of things, but it's just, I enjoy the buzz of coaching. Like, I just don't know whether I want to do coaching or management yet. Do you know, so there's a big difference. And
massive difference.
Probably years ago, you were nearly doing both or whatever, but now I think there's very much distinctive coach role and management role, or, you know, an element of both maybe in terms of club level, but county level it's probably predominantly management, you know what I mean? So listen, we'll see what happens over time. I'm not making any commitments at the moment.
Yeah, see
have enough fun.
But just the last thing I wanted to touch on, Paddy, was obviously that's the whole idea behind this. But like, my probably sole purpose in life now is showing people what I said there about don't tell and show, that you can have a better quality of life through action. You know, you're very busy. You know, you just don't have the school, you have the gym and you have other things going on. Like, you work a lot of hours a week.
Yeah.
You've kids, you've family, you're still playing, you're doing your rehab now, you're doing you're along with Jane Adams now.
Yeah.
Talk to me a bit more about that just before we go on to the next.
Yeah, I suppose, listen, you know Jane, as well as I do. Me and
Love
Jane,
her.
listen, so much time for her too. Like, we've been tight. I suppose from a playing capacity, first and foremost, we obviously would end up being at the same gigs in terms of being in, you know, representing the Camogie or the Gaelic or whatever. Always kept in touch, and, you know, I suppose now when you get a bit older and a bit wiser, you can see what's going on in the world outside of your bubble of GA and school and whatever else. You know, there obviously Brexit's been a complete disaster for every aspect of society, particularly here in the north. So, you know, there's a bigger picture there in terms of planning for hopefully uniting Ireland and New Ireland in the future. I think civic society has a role within that. You know, we're obviously just the Gaelic voice for that, in terms of obviously starting in Antrim, and then, to be honest, the amount of doors, people ringing saying we'd like to get involved in this from all of Ireland's been incredible. So that sort of was a catalyst for spreading it right across Ireland, and obviously right into the Taoiseach. So we had a productive meeting last week with the Shared Ireland unit and a representative from Leo's office. We are hopeful to meet Leo over the course of the next 5 or 6 weeks. I think it's important that conversations are had. Like you're in changing rooms, you're in podcasts, you're in different facets of life day in, day out, and listen, these conversations are live. You know, we're just basically hoping and want the Irish government to take leadership and planning for it. And listen, as we said last week, the representatives from Leo Vago's office in the Shared Ireland unit, you know, we're just the GA fraternity of this. You know, I don't think it'll be too long before you see other demographics from civic society, be it music, arts, business, whatever it is. Obviously there's a lot of conversations being had. Other groups coming forward and putting, you know, pressure on the Irish government to start a plan for this. And we feel the best way to go about that is through formulating healthy debate, informed debate, and inviting all areas of society to take part in that in a via Citizens Assembly.
And to be inclusive, I suppose,
absolutely,
for everybody. And we'll have Niall Murphy on in a couple of weeks too, so we'll probably get into that a wee bit more.
You may leave about 3 hours to save that one.
We'll get into that a wee bit more. But last thing, Paddy, and I think this is important just to finish off. I did, just before we get into that, about young people, about, you know, we touched on it throughout the podcast, about maybe people doing things and then maybe not feeling like they're good at it and then giving up and stuff like that. But in terms of, you know, you've been teaching a long time now. I don't want to give away your age, but you referenced there your placement taking me in first year, which wasn't yesterday. But in terms of like school curriculums, in terms of, you know, approaching well-being, in terms of resilience, these words that we have sort of used, and the action, I suppose, that just shows throughout your life in terms of, you know, succeeding and doing well and excelling and in your profession, in your sport, and then what you're doing now in business and stuff like that. Like you've done well. What could be done differently, do you think? I know it's a bit of it's a tough question, and I suppose it's probably even tougher because you're in it in school teaching, but to put you on the spot. But what do you think could be done differently in terms of the curriculum, in terms of teaching kids a better way of life, in terms of things that I've just mentioned there, their well-being, being able to deal with setbacks, being able to manage more, even if it's finance? A bit of a broad thing there, but do you think that it's become a bit dated, or do you think that there should be more done in terms of, like, even me, I mentioned there at the start about that transition, you know, from school to university, all these things, and I'm just thinking, like, is there more that we could be doing for kids for their lives? And I know, listen, Marty Ray said, don't know, I kind of tried to do it with you, but it's very hard to do it with 50 people or whatever, do you know?
Yeah.
And I know you probably do that with you mentioned Ian on there and Shay and these boys, and you have, but do you think there should be more?
It's tough, Donald, because, you know, you need to remember too, like, obviously, to be fair, Monday to Friday kids spend the most of their time in school, 9 to 3 o'clock, but I feel a lot of the issues that are coming into school are arising from outside of school.
Okay.
You know, in terms of, unfortunately, I'm talking across a broad spectrum. I'm not talking in relation to, you know, one particular school, but I think in society as a whole. There's a huge responsibility, I feel, on parents. You know, what's happening in the homes is very important, and then obviously that being nurtured and developed and as best possibly can within the school environment. I think there probably is a bit of learning to be done in terms of life skills, separate to obviously the core education of the syllabus is for each and every subject. Particularly, you know, that's an interesting point. A lot of children now are leaving at 15, 16, you know, rather than waiting to 18 to go to university. And you see a lot of children now going on to apprenticeships and stuff like that as well. But listen, you know, there's a million different aspects to that, do you know, that way, in terms of having role models, setting standards, you know, being able to accept that you're not going to be brilliant at everything. I listened to Marty's point last week in your podcast a couple weeks ago, whenever it was, in terms of saying, like, be the best that you can be at something. Don't strike for something which is not so much unrealistic, but, you know, be grounded, you know, be consistent, be able to take setbacks and bounce back. You know, it's the same, you know, children now, you know, maybe it's screen time, maybe, you know, it's just, you know, lack of, you know, commitment, dedication to their schoolwork, to sport, or whatever it may be. Different strategies around that. Like, there's a million different personalities, you know, and thank God over time the way I was educated was a lot different the way you were educated. The way kids are educated now is a lot different than when you were there, because we're constantly learning. But there's a wide spectrum of stuff that, you know, that could be developed there in terms of all aspects of education, and that's the beauty of education. It's always going to develop, it's always going to change, and as teachers and as parents and as students, everybody needs to be adaptable and respond to that.
Absolutely. Paddy, thanks very much.
No worries.
Appreciate
Paddy,
it.
no problem.
Really good chat. And, yeah, we got there, and I think that there's a lot to be learned there for your honesty and the way you've sort of carried yourself and the way you still do carry yourself, and I think that you are a role model for a lot of people, and I think that reflects on your children too, like how nice they are and how nice your family are.
You haven't met Ari for though.
No, but maybe she takes it out there. That's me definitely in trouble. But no, thanks very much, and a huge thanks again to Used Cars NI for your continued support. Please hit them up on www.usedcarsni for all your car needs, buying, selling, and everything in between, and I will see you all next week. Thank you.